What's up, Marvel fans? I'm Steven from the Hills Maniacs, and as you all know, Marvel's newest Disney Plus series, Agatha All Along, is due to premiere soon as of this recording. Obviously, I am recording it before the show has actually premiered yet, so this video is kind of my thoughts on the show before it even starts, because I kind of wanted to talk about why I feel the show is unnecessary. Because after hearing about the show, I was kind of thinking, this show doesn't really seem necessary to me. Like, why are they creating this show? Do we really need this show? So that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about in this video today. So basically, here are 5 reasons why I feel that the Agatha All Along series is an unnecessary addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So like I said, I'm recording this video a couple days before the show actually premieres, so I don't really know what happens yet. So all of my thoughts in this video are basically judging it ahead of time before I actually see it. My opinion about the show may change after I watch it and after the series finale and everything like that. So maybe I'll do a follow-up video and talk about what I felt about the show at that point. But right now, this is kind of just my opinion on the show without having actually ever seen it. And first of all, I think that Agatha is a character that was just meant to be an antagonist to Wanda Maximoff in WandaVision. I don't think she's a character that's really well developed enough yet to warrant getting her own series. I think they're just doing it more so as like a cash grab kind of thing, just to like, oh well, here's another Marvel show for you, you know, that kind of thing. And it's about just let's just pick Agatha and we'll do a show about her. And I don't think that's really fair to us as fans. Like, I am probably going to watch the show because it is part of the MCU, and maybe it will prove me wrong and it will be better than I thought it was going to be, and it will be somewhat important to the overall narrative of the MCU. But just the character of Agatha Harkness doesn't feel like she should be the star of her own show. We've only seen her in like one thing. Like, Wanda Maximoff was worthy of having her own show because we'd seen her in other projects before WandaVision came out. So we kind of got to learn who that character was already. And she'd been in enough movies and that sort of thing for us to get behind this character and be like, okay, we like this character. I'm interested to see this follow-up show about her and starring her and everything else. But Agatha Harkness hasn't been built up yet. She was just meant to be like a one-off villain in this series. That'd be like making Hayward from that show have his own spin-off with Sword or something. Like, I don't think that would be a show worthy of our time, really, because those characters weren't given to us enough already. Now, I get that maybe this is their way of like, we're going to build Agatha Harkness up as this character that we need down the road that we're going to see in some other Avengers movie or something, like one of like Secret Wars or Doomsday or whatever. But right now it doesn't feel like she's that type of character that deserves her own series. She's no like Tony Stark or Captain America or anything like that. So I don't feel like she needs her own series just yet. Like, I think they should have maybe had her showing up in a couple other shows or movies or something first, to really lay out the groundwork for who this character is, to then give us a reason to want a show about her. And I would have much rather seen probably like a prequel show, kind of showing her life as a young witch, like growing up into the witch that we see her as in WandaVision. Like, I think that would have maybe been interesting and at least given us a look into the backstory and the lore of this character before she went into the events of WandaVision. That might have been interesting and that might have made people want to watch it, but I don't think having her come back from WandaVision is really worthy of anybody's time. And I think they maybe should have done more with this character first before giving her her own series. Another reason I think this show is unnecessary is because it feels to me like they're just using it to sort of bring Billy Maximoff, Wanda's son, into the MCU like fully now. And I don't know how exactly they're going to explain that, because him and his brother were technically just almost like figments of Wanda's imagination. Like, they were created by the Hex in Westview from the show WandaVision by Wanda, just as that version of Vision was. they weren't real. She kind of just imagined them or created them from her magic, and then they all disappeared at the end. So, and I also thought it was weird that in Multiverse of Madness, we kind of see those kids again from a different reality where that is what they look like. So I don't know how exactly all that worked out. How she was able, I don't know if she sort of like pulled, their like souls or images of them from the multiverse, and that's kind of what helped her imagine what they look like when she created those versions of them. I don't know all that kind of magic behind it. Maybe they'll explain that more. But I feel like this show is mainly just setting that up. It's setting up Billy to be here for whenever their Young Avengers project is, like whatever that turns out to be. Whether it's a movie or a series, whatever, because that character, along with his brother, I believe, are both part of the Young Avengers group in the comics. So I feel like because they kind of erased them from existence at the end of WandaVision, and they were just these young kids in that show, they needed a way to bring them back. And I don't feel like this show was really the way to do that. I feel like a show being advertised around Agatha Harkness almost seems overshadowed by the fact that they're trying to bring Billy Maximoff into the MCU again, and it kind of renders Agatha almost like a side character in her own show, and I don't think that's the way they should go about this. And I think that's the only reason people are probably going to tune into this, to find out, well, how is Billy alive? How is he basically a teenager at this point? How, like, grown up more than what we saw in WandaVision? How is any of this possible? And they're going to look for that explanation in the show, and that might really be the only hook that gets people invested. Just as, like they advertised Daredevil being in She-Hulk and Echo and that kind of thing, and he really wasn't in that many episodes. He was more of a cameo in Echo than anything else. That was the only thing that they had to really get people interested in it, because they wanted to see Charlie Cox as Daredevil again. And I don't think that's the way that they should have gone about this. I think doing something else to explain how this character was brought in, maybe a post-credit scene from WandaVision or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness could have explained it. Like maybe they got pulled into the multiverse, or pulled out of the multiverse somehow and ended up here, or whatever. Just some little explanation would have been a better way to bring them in than to just simply using this spin-off series from WandaVision that's not even about them or about Billy Maximoff to bring that character back into the MCU to use in the future. I feel like it's a waste if the show is supposed to be about Agatha Harkness. Another issue I have with them, creating this show in the first place is it's going to introduce us to characters that I don't think are ever going to show up in the MCU again. Now, I know a lot of these MCU shows and even some movies lately have done that. Like they have these one-off characters that are meant for this movie and that's it. They don't follow up with anything else, or they die or get killed off in the show or whatever. But I feel like this show especially doesn't feel that connected to the rest of the MCU, so these characters probably aren't going to pop up again unless they're like with Agatha in the future. Like they're having her have her own sort of coven that she goes out and finds all these other witches or something in the series, from what I've learned from like the trailers and stuff. She needs these other witches to help her go down the witch's road to get her powers back or whatever. But I feel like that's all these characters are being used for, and then they're going to be just tossed aside. We'll never see them again, or maybe they'll get trapped in the witch's road or something, or they'll all die off or whatever. I don't see those characters playing any sort of role in the movies or anything else in the future for the MCU, and I feel like that's just kind of a waste. Like, well, what's the point then? Obviously, the point is to establish Agatha, but that's about it. So, like, why introduce us to all these characters if we're never going to see them again? That kind of makes it feel like they're wasting our time showing us these other characters, because why would we want to get to know them if we're never going to see them again in the future? And I don't feel like they really have any importance to the rest of the MCU. Like, they're not going to have their own movie someday. I don't even know their names, really. They may have mentioned them in the trailer, all these other characters and stuff, other than Mrs. Hart from WandaVision, who's in this show for some reason, and is apparently a witch, maybe. But, like, other than that, I don't see these characters carrying over into anything else. Like, you look at Falcon and the Winter Soldier, some of the characters from that carried over into the new Captain America movie and that sort of thing. So those characters did. So they kind of took the time to show us who Isaiah Bradley is, because he's going to be in that movie and so forth, and to establish Sam. I mean, Sam was already established anyways, but you get my point. The other characters that they introduced in that show could pop up again later on. Same as the characters from Moon Knight or whatever. They may, like Arthur Harrow, may be a villain again in the future or something. It gives you that possibility that like those characters could show up. And I don't feel like these characters are really here for anything else other than to just be side characters for Agatha to interact with, to help her along her journey, and that's it. Also, I feel like this show is unnecessary because it basically renders the ending of WandaVision pointless. Because Wanda defeated Agatha at the end of that show, and she took all of Agatha's powers out of her to give them to herself, and that along with the Darkhold is what allowed Wanda to kind of jump through or learn more about the multiverse and that sort of thing for the events of Multiverse of Madness to play out when she fought against Doctor Strange and was trying to travel the multiverse to find her kids. All of those things had to happen so that she could do that. But that now in this show, Agatha's going out to try and get her powers back, and I'm sure she will by the end of the show, because otherwise that would really render this pointless. So if that's the case, if she does end up getting her powers back, then that kind of ruins everything that Wanda did in WandaVision. Because now not only is her spell broken that was keeping Agatha as Agnes in Westview, but also if Agatha can just get her powers back, then really Wanda didn't do anything to Agatha, which would basically mean that Wanda didn't really accomplish anything in WandaVision, and she wasn't really as powerful as she thought, which isn't what you want to do, especially if they're trying to build her up as the Scarlet Witch, this really powerful being who may or may not have died in Multiverse of Madness, and I'm sure will show up sometime in the future. But if you want Wanda to seem like this really powerful witch that can even take another witch's powers out of her and into herself, and then just to have, there's a witch's road, you can get your powers back, to have Agatha get her powers back, then like what was the point of Wanda taking her powers in the first place? That's what I'm trying to get at. I feel like it renders all of that completely pointless. And finally, I just feel like this show is a waste of time. I don't really see where it's going or what its importance is to the overall MCU, because I know they're trying to build this sort of multiverse saga, which they've kind of hinted at with several movies now. You had the Marvels had a little bit of multiversal crossover, Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine even. Like, they're starting to build up all these different multiverses and the multiversal war that's probably going to play out in the future Avengers movie and that kind of thing. So Marvel needs to focus more on that. I don't feel like a show about Agatha Harkness getting her powers back is going to really play a role in that. I could be wrong. Like I said, I haven't seen the show yet. It hasn't premiered at the time that I recorded this video. So like maybe they do have a way that they're going to tie it into everything. Maybe they have some kind of multiversal thing happen at the end. Who knows? But right now, from my perspective of filming this before the show actually comes out, before I've even seen the first or second episode or whatever, I just feel like it's a pointless show, and Marvel should focus more on giving us things that have to do with the multiverse saga. And I feel like that's their biggest problem they've had over the last number of years since they started all these Disney Plus shows, is that they all seem to be telling different stories or leading to something different and not focusing on that one thing like they did in the past. Like all the other movies in the past, well, they had their own villains, the heroes had their own villains to fight and that kind of thing. You still knew that it was leading to something. You knew that, Iron Man's fighting this villain right now in this movie, but then they have a post-credit scene or something that ties it into the next Captain America movie or whatever. They always had it consistently connected to everything else. And then lately, these MCU shows and movies and all that feel like they're building to two different things. It almost feels like they're building to a Young Avengers, or like an Avengers movie that's separate from Secret Wars and Doomsday, where it's like just the sort of earthbound Avengers fighting for New York, or the Young Avengers fighting for New York or something. And even with all that, this show doesn't feel like it's leading to either of those things either. It just feels like a way to give Agatha her powers back so she can show up sometime in the future, maybe to interact with Wanda again down the road at some point in some other movie or some other project that they do. Like I sort of said at the beginning of the video, I feel like they made this show just to have something to give us, because like, oh, we're only having 3 projects this year. We have 1 movie with Deadpool and Wolverine, and then we had Echo, and now we have this other project here, Agatha all along. And that, like, I feel like they were just making this show so they could appease the MCU fans and give us something, anything related to the MCU at all. And that's all this feels like. It doesn't feel like it's actually connected to the overall story that they're trying to tell. But let me know what you guys think of my opinion on this show down in the comments section. Do you think it is important? Do you think it will have some kind of importance to the MCU? Do you think Agatha Harkness was an interesting enough character to get her own series? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Also, be sure to like this video and check out all the other Marvel-related content we've put up on this channel in the past. Thank you for watching the video, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.